Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sheri.
And together we are the Traveling Professors. Sheri and I are going to take you on a balloon trip over Luxor. Actually, to be more accurate, over the many attractions of Luxor. Valley of the Nobles, Hatshepsut's Temple, the Memnon Colossi, the Ramesseum, and Medinet Habu. So let's inflate the balloon and get started. Sheri and I were in Egypt in 2019 in January, and we were down at Luxor for about a week. And this is the day we were taking our balloon trip. Now, we've been up in balloons before. We've flown over to the Loire Valley. You've seen the one with Lawrence as we flew over Chaumont in the Loire Valley. But this is the first time we've been in a group one. We've usually been just the two of us with our pilot. Now, I did a lot of research, and we selected what was known as the Atlanta Balloon Company, which is actually Atlanta is the original name of the Luxor area. And there's our captain standing in front of this very large group of balloons. And there are lots of them that go up, and they go up in stages. So one of the bigger companies, you get to go first. They really didn't want you to take a camera. It was too much to bounce around. We ended up smuggling them on, but they were really kind of useless. So we used our cell phones to take pictures and to take video. And the video clips that you'll see are from the phones. And so we watched them blow up, and then they gave us the lessons on how to get in and out and what to do. So here's Sheri and I. We were just excited. And in January, you don't have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the balloon area. They pick you up from the hotel, take you down to the little port area, and then boat you across, then put you on a bus to the launch site, which is not far from Hatshepsut's temple. We're one of the very first ones to get off, and you can see the pictures, the beautiful nature of the balloons as they're filling up and then rising. Once we reached altitude, then he did a 360-degree turn with it. The video that I have will show you the far side of the rock formation, and you can see Ramses' temple, and then it'll spin around towards the Valley of Nobles. Then you'll see Hatshepsut's temple and burial site, and then it'll pivot all the way around until you can see Luxor and the sun rising in the east. Here's a beautiful shot of the sun coming up over the Nile, and you can see some of the geographical features to the east. And then here's one where the sun is finally over the horizon, and you can see the Nile once again. The city of Luxor is behind it, and then the beautiful farmland area. And of course, there are going to be balloons just about everywhere.
There are many caves and wall lines, the lights. There is the valley of the nobles, valley of the
Here's a nice still shot of the Temple of Hatshepsut with the parking area, and you can see everything. And the balloon will now flow from this direction to the left, and we'll end up out in the desert, which is where we'll end up landing. Now, Sheri and I had been to most of the places that we overflew in the days previous to this flight, so I'm going to show you some ground shots. The day we went to the Valley of the Kings, we also saw the Temple of Hatshepsut, and on another day trip, we did the Ramesseum, we did Medinet Habu, and we also did the Valley of the Nobles. So everything we saw from the air, we had seen from the ground. So here is the approach to the magnificent temple and tomb of Hatshepsut. Here is Professor Bob and Professor Sheri standing in front of it. Here we are moving away from the Temple of Hatshepsut and moving towards our left, and then here is where we're headed next. We're going to fly over this right here, down in this area. That is the Ramesseum. You can see that delineation point where the farmland is, where they use irrigation from the Nile, and where you have the desert. Now, after the initial rise to get the total picture of where everything was, then he gradually brought the balloon down to this level, so you could see in very good detail the Ramesseum. And it's at this level that the balloon will pretty much stay. It'll go down a little bit further when we get into the village areas. And here's our visit to the Ramesseum, the funeral monument where they embalmed Ramses the Great and then took him to his tomb. And it used to have the largest statue in Egypt. This is what's left of it. The head of it is now in the British Museum. And there I am standing next to it. And our guide now, our guide for the Ramesseum and for Medinet Habu and several other places was Hosni, who was a professor of hieroglyphics. And he could speak the name of Ramses on the hieroglyphics here, and it was just amazing. I wish I had taped it. So it's back up into the air. Our next flyover is the Valley of the Nobles, which is up in this region right in here. We also went into several of those tombs. And a lot of people don't go here, but it's incredible what is inside these tombs. It is quite a walk up to the main tombs. There are several of them to see. I'm just going to show you pictures of one of them. There'll be a whole show on all of these places that we've just been showing you bits and pieces. But on this walk up, I got a great lesson from Hosni. There was one gentleman standing in the area selling guidebooks to this. And I didn't know whether I wanted to buy a guidebook or not. And I said, so I'll think about it. So we walked a little further. And Hosni said, what will happen is he will stand there for as long as we are up here and then come back, hoping that he will get a sale. So you're better to tell them that you don't want it so that they can then go somewhere else than to be what you believe is not hurting his feelings, but kind of costs him in the long run, which was a great lesson. I also did one stupid thing. There were a group of archaeologists digging, and I took a picture. And you're not supposed to do that. They waggled their finger at me, and then I realized, what I had done. So here's Hosni helping Sheri down into one of the tombs. Now, one of them you could just walk straight into. But this is the one he said that you definitely have to come up and see, and it's worth the walk all the way up the hill. Here's the interior of it. It is in spectacular condition. Now, this is a nobleman, and here is the famous ceiling of this tomb, which shows all of the grapes. Being back up in the air, the next temple we're going to visit is Medinet Habu, which is right here. Here's a little closer shot of it. You can see the balloon in the background. And then here we are a little bit closer flying over it. Now, Medinet Habu is a very important temple because if you study the Sea Peoples, it's people who supposedly invaded and destroyed a lot of the civilizations of the Aegean area, they're a real problem for Egypt. And Ramses dealt with them by using mercenaries that were the Sea Peoples, such as the Sheridan, feeding the various groups. Well, Medinet Habu has the best artwork of what these sea peoples looked like. And so it's a very important place for documentation of the types of sea people. And it was really interesting because our guide, Hosni, this is one of his favorite places, that in the Ramesseum. So we've spent quite a bit of time here looking at all the different hieroglyphics. Here we are visiting Medinet Habu. We're actually in the inner courtyard. And when you walk underneath the columns, this is what it looks like. As you can see just how well preserved the artwork and the paint is on the ceiling and on the areas between the columns and the columns themselves. And you also have walled areas where you can see where the record of the fighting with the Sea Peoples is located as well. Well, here's our aerial shot of our last temple complex. See, sometimes the balloonist will take you way down, and our balloon pilot will do that in the villages. We'll skim over the farmland, but some of them will go down close to the temples. And this whole stretch here is part of one of the temples, I believe, of Amenhotep IV, but it's known for the most part as where the Colossi of Memnon are located. So here's a flyover of the Colossi of Memnon. A couple of days before we did our balloon flight, we had been out here and visited it. It was one of those places we stopped while we were doing the Valley of the King. So here's Sheri and I standing between the two Colossi of Memnon. Here we are once again up into the air, and you can see the rising sun in the background, some nice balloons, the area where they farm. And then here in this corner you see this little spot. That is a famous Coptic monastery. Now, we had flown over it before and I hadn't realized that I'd taken a good picture of it. But this is an ancient Coptic Christian monastery, and it was attacked by some terrorists at one point, and it now has heavy security. You cannot go to the monastery without their permission. So we're reaching the point where it's about time for our balloon flight to end. So next thing that we're going to do is come down to the lower level and kind of strafe over the farmland.
My ears actually popped. Oh, there's the donkeys going to work early.
Caraca, é rasante mesmo. Toca nessa árvore aí. Tem que esticar o braço. Ele vai batendo no.
Now we're going to land our balloon out in this region over here. And so we have to head back over the desert. Here we are getting closer to the landing point. And I'm going to show you a little video clip of this. We don't have a video clip of us landing, but you'll see one of the problems. We were on the farmland side of the area, and there's a row of high voltage power lines that kind of run the length at this particular point along this. So we have to go over them and then down. So it is a little tricky. It wasn't tricky at all for us. It was just a little concerning looking at it as we were getting ready to come in for a landing.
Caraca, olha essa visão, gente. Olha. Nossa, tá bonito.
I thought when you landed in the desert it would be nice and smooth. After all, it's just sand. No, it's not. It was rocky. So it was a little rocky landing. It was a soft landing, but it wasn't like landing with Lawrence in the Loire Valley, let me tell you. And so we got out and got into our van, and they took us to the port, and we got on the ship, and it took us back to our hotel. And that was our balloon flight over Luxor. Now, as far as price goes, it was $175 per person. So it was $350 for the two of us, which is pretty much what most balloon flights are charge. It was an hour in length. I thought it would be a little bit longer considering where we were covering, but it was exactly an hour. So I highly recommend it if you're ever in Luxor. And again, it's one of those reasons why when I talk about Luxor, stay a while and do some of these things. Don't try and cram them all in at once. So thank you very much. Sheri and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I've been doing podcasting on history for over 15 years. I've got over 4,000 shows, and I've done CDs, which of course can be sent out as USBs. So if you would really like to get more on history for free, then come by my website, as you see here, historyaccordingtobob.com, and see what's there. So thank you very much again.